And I think, for instance, Green Cross International works on 5 different program areas. And those program areas are the challenge of water, the challenge of security, the challenge of clean energy, of social and medical care for people who are affected by disasters, and then finally education and value change. And I mean, what we find is that in basically all of the problems that are affecting us now are essentially come down to the same issues again and again and again, and these are causing all of these different challenges. And so, as an example, when you have basically climate change affecting the hydrological cycle, so affecting how water works in the world, that increases both disasters. It increases the costs to health, and of course it affects the environment as well. And so you have a single cause that is having a great deal of effect.
Thank you. It's an interesting view, and you mentioned education. And let us, use modern technology to fly back magically from Geneva to Almaty. And maybe I'll ask Alexei Sankovsky to contribute a couple of words about what he thinks. How education, or is education well positioned today to talk about sustainable development and contribute to discussions and discourses on sustainable development?
Thank you. And well, I can talk about perspective here, and maybe perspective of OECD countries is slightly different, but just slightly. Since there are potentially millions and billions of young people entering the world, entering the workforce, the emphasis on values and emphasis on sustainability in their education is critical, because what we see, latest forecasts talk about Africa having, tens of billions of people by the end of the century. And the question is, if people who are there now, people in Asia, and including here in Kazakhstan, cannot find jobs to sustain their families, what's going to happen to them in 50 years when there are going to be like a billion or more people? So one more question that I want to address is that the lady or the students asked about cars versus investment in climate change versus clothes or whatever. It's very simple. You're talking about private good and public good. So simple example, you have money to buy 3 cars, you can buy 3 cars, but there are no roads to drive those cars on. Or you can buy one small car and have a nice road to drive it on. What would you prefer? In a similar fashion, you can buy nice 5 pairs of clothes, and you have nowhere to wear them to, because you have dirty streets, you have no infrastructure. Why bother buying clothes in this situation, right? So I think the key objective of education, of sustainability element in the education, is training people to understand and to include that in their I would say value chain, that consumption for public good, well, the public good at some point takes precedence over the private good. And as we all know, sustainability is developed in time. So basically you consume only so much as to let consume your children, grandchildren, and so on and so forth. I personally see a huge gap in that direction. I know people are trained how to be programmers, lawyers, doctors. They're not trained to work sustainably and think sustainably. So I think there's a huge deficiency in this department.
Thank you very much. It's interesting, very critical view. And let us fly back to Europe, to Geneva, and maybe we can have contribution from Lucy. Please press the mic on the screen. I think we can you to speak? Okay, our magic will take us back to maybe to Astana. Robin, what is your view? You have been here in Kazakhstan for a while. Kazakhstan is not a typical country. It was not a typical country because it has oil wells. But it's typical developing country in a way how it spends money and its budget on different issues. So what's your take? How to spend better millions and millions of dollars, what right now Kazakhstan receives, and maybe one specific target, education. If you are a Minister of Education or if you are a rector of like leading university, how will you spend on what you do to contribute to sustainable development?
Another great question. So if I were there, first of all, I just want to say I think it's really exciting to be here and to see Kazakhstan exactly at this moment in history when it's undertaking so many really ambitious programs and schemes. And living in Astana, I see, this vision of the city of the future and this space age, very modern city that's going up with this fantastic architecture and building the grounds for the Expo 2017, which has this theme of future energy. And it's really exciting to see, and I'm very much impressed with the ambition and the vision of Kazakhstan to evolve towards this green economy. I have to admit that a few things surprise me. My home is in Los Angeles, and you may know Los Angeles for many things, Hollywood, beaches, and surfing, things like that. But what you may not know is that Los Angeles has one of the worst traffic problems in the United States, and it's notorious for traffic jams and freeways and many cars. And so I am unpleasantly surprised to see in Astana that already the traffic in this very modern looking city has this very old-fashioned problem. And so what I think there is a challenge in understanding that you have to lay a foundation and build the systems underneath that will really make and achieve this vision of the future. So you want to have beautifully designed bridges, but they need to be connected with an automatic traffic light system so that cars can move quickly down the road, and that there is transit systems so you don't have to be in a car, and that there's bike pathways so that you can ride your bicycle instead of sitting in a car when the weather permits. And I think in terms of education, that there's a lot, I think it comes down to economics and urban planning and maybe a little bit of science fiction as well, to have this vision of what is possible when you are thinking about creating a new universe. Anything is possible, and how do you translate that back to Kazakhstan today? And I think it is a good way of being creative and coming up with some ideas for what might be possible here.
Thank you very much. And we have one speaker. He didn't speak today on the screen, but he was talking to us before the video conference, and he was talking a lot about his nostalgia about university campus. Now let us appoint him as a rector of university and ask him what should we do, what should he do to contribute to sustainable development in campus, and maybe to use a lot of intellectual resources what we have at the university for mitigating climate change. Mike is yours.
Hello friends. What my view on today's students and today's situation in our education, I want to say that unfortunately when we are talking about people who continue their work in the area of climate change, on the mitigation of sustainable development. Unfortunately, today we have not enough very skilled people, we have not enough educated people. And this is a problem of our government, and this is a problem of our country. This is my view, maybe, because lots of area for activity, but there is not enough people who may respond for this activity. And really, this is my nostalgia to be here in Al-Farabi University. I studied here more than 20 years ago. I finished, I graduated more than 20 years ago, and it's changed very huge. Lots of new buildings, lots of new people, but unfortunately the situation became worse and worse from year to year, because we have not enough people at the end of the education. There's not enough people who may have a good education at the final and continue their work in this area, unfortunately. For example, faculty who is responsible for the student who responsible for the climate change, for the mitigation options, for maybe sustainable development, have every year, maybe 5, 10, 20 people who graduated university, but from these 20, maybe 30 people, only 5 or 10 continue their activity in this area, not more. And this is a problem of our, this is a reality of our life, and this is a problem of our country today, because maybe there is not enough salary for these people, maybe there is not enough interest to continue the activity in this direction. This is a problem of our today's education and today's students who are studying in the beginning. They have a huge interest, but they have not progress after graduating of the university, after graduating our institutes. This is a problem. This is a reality of our country. We have not enough specialists to compensate all of the necessary area of activities in which our country today tries to develop, and this is a problem. Thank you. That is very briefly.
Thank you very much indeed. You know, there is one concept what I came across recently, calling I think it would footprint. So every person leaves his or her own footprint on the earth, spending so much water, energy, calories, food for maintaining his or her life. Some people use more, sometimes some use a lot more than others, and some people have even trouble having like glass of water, clean glass of water. And of course we're talking about educating people. And let us go back to Geneva. We like Geneva for some reasons, and to have contribution from there. And again, maybe asking you to have a global picture, maybe some ideas about best practice, and some ideas for Kazakhstan. Who is going to pick up? Lucy? You want to try again? Okay, Green Cross.
Okay, well, I think one thing that's really come up, especially in 2015, as we move towards the Paris Conference of Parties, that's going to be up in December of 2015, is that we really want to think about building the future that we want. So we want a positive vision of a sustainable future. And this is really about trying to find, identify, and focus on the opportunities that countries have. I mean, as an example that was being spoken about before, you know, some of the older developed countries, you know, are stuck with this history and this inheritance of, you know, a car-based development. And there are a lot of other countries that are building up now, and you know, they don't really have any reason to be stuck with that kind of a history, and so they can think about new ways of taking advantage of, you know, the opportunities that we have, you know, to design cities on new models. And of course, you know, why wouldn't you want to build a future that's based on, you know, clean living, good jobs, and real prosperity.
Oh, thank you. You know what I do here at Kazakhstan National University, we often have case studies. What we try to do, we try to come with practical solutions for small and very small problems what we have here in Almaty city. Sometimes ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, we had brainstorming, and we tried to identify like 20 most pressing issues for Almaty, large, medium-sized city of about 2.5 million people, and trying to find solutions. Of course, as a student group, we cannot find a full solution. We cannot solve big problems. We cannot solve even mid-sized problems, but we can find small solutions at our local community level. And we had like 20 ideas, 20 projects, and among them like my favorite project, which won $1 million tenge from Mayor Office of Almaty. It was about biking habitat, creating habitat which is good for biking, changing your cars or leaving your cars at home and riding your bikes to your office or to your study place. So what about if we invite Robin to be a professor and to come to have like case study or seminar at university? What will you do to teach, and how will you teach students to think about local communities, about their own cities, about sustainable development? Especially you are in a smart city. I know that new definition of Astana, it's a smart city or going to be smart city in future. So what's your take from your observation of Astana and your thinking about future generation, about students?
Well, I think it sounds like fun, actually, and I'm curious to know if there are some volunteers there in the room with you who would help, because I think it's a big job. I love cities. I love cities, and one thing that I like about them is the fact that often in a city you can get someplace without having to get in your car. You can explore a neighborhood by walking or by bicycle or by taking transport options, and that it's very convenient. And so I think the first thing that I would do, Professor Abaso, is think about the transportation system underlying a city and how that influences the shape or the future or the movement of the city. So I think any case study I did would start with that. And,
Thank
you know, and the sky's the limit. Then you can work out the economic centers and create, create places for people to gather and to work and to have culture and have entertainment, restaurants. Yeah, I've never done something like that, but I would like to try.
Thank you. Usually I start my lectures with trying to give some interesting ideas to my students, to some quizzes, some ideas to discuss. And one of my favorites, but very sad cases, or illustrations, is that from space we can see only 3 man-made constructions on the Earth. It's Great Chinese Wall, Great Pyramids in Egypt, and huge wall of garbage around New York City. So, we are humans, but sometimes we destroy our planet. And we have to find a way how to balance our needs and needs of future generations and needs of our planet. Maybe let me fly back to Almaty and here have some ideas from Alexei on my right hand.
Okay.
How to balance.
Okay, once again, basically you are talking about public and private good. Well, just one close example. I recently lived in Moscow, Russia, and maybe 3 years ago Moscow has been ranked as the most congested city in the world. Now Moscow is barely like number 7. The only thing that has been done is to introduce paid parking in downtown the city and enforce it. it was sufficient to make people understand that public good costs something. And they stopped driving. They started use paid parking, underground parking. People who didn't need to drive, they took a bus or they didn't go. So it's a very simple example how economics can help solve the problem. I don't know if that example is good for Almaty. I hope so, because that will certainly allow you to really reduce the congestion and probably improve the situation with pollution, which is not very good. Another example from Astana, I've been there for a year and a half, and the thing that's keeps striking me is that people start their cars and they keep running idle for maybe half an hour before anyone walks in and gets in the car. By doing that, people creating, four problems for themselves, for environment. Well, they're killing their car, they're wasting money, they're, contributing to awful environmental quality locally, and they finally contribute to global climate change. Why they do it? Maybe it's tradition, maybe it's lack of thinking, but this is a simple thing that people, and especially young people, should learn from their professors, from their peers, how to do simple things and make your life easier, save money, and contribute to global good. So I think your approach is good, Professor Bazov. You should continue giving those little examples to your students during every lecture, and they should find solutions.
Thank you very much. I hope our discussion is lively and lovely, not only for us to enjoy seeing each other on the screen, but also for our students. And we have last 10 minutes. So what probably I will do, I will use my magic microphone and my magic screen, and we'll fly over 2 continents and asking just one simple question. If you have a chance to talk to students, to huge student audience, like we have like huge halls, like 200, 300, 400, 500 students, and you'd like to say something to future generation of leaders, those who lead our planet, who will become presidents, prime ministers, CEO of corporations, what will you say about environment and about sustainable development? Let us start with Geneva, and then we will fly to Astana, and we will land back to Almaty.
Okay, well, what I think needs absolutely to be said is that a sustainable future is a more prosperous, healthier future than a non-sustainable one. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is that the benefits are so massive, that we can't afford not to.
Thank you. Very short, very brief contribution. What about Astana?
Yeah, I know my mother, who is 69 years old, recently bought an iPad, and she didn't know how to use it. She took it out of the box, and she was just a little confused. But my niece, who is 5 years old, said, "Here, Grandma, I will show you how to do it." And so I like that example because I think it's very obvious that as we have a modern way of thinking, it's students today who will be the leaders in the future. And I would say don't think that, oh, we've always done it this way, and so therefore it's correct, and that's the way that we should do it. In fact, I would say to think about, where do we want to be in 2050, and what do we need to do today to be there in 2050? And as our speaker from Geneva said, it's a society, and it's a time where we have clean air, we have clean water, we have jobs, we have homes that are warm when we want them, when it's cold outside, and cool when it's hot outside. And we have the ability to have lives that give us pleasure, and we are healthy and happy. And so the things that will get there to that future are probably not what we have always done. And so don't look to the past only to say how we move forward. But think about new ways, new technologies, innovation. And I'm so excited at the potential and the ideas that will come from students today and what kind of world they will help us have in the future.
Thank you, Robin. So we are back to Almaty. So we are lending to my right hand to Alexei first and to Alexei second. And I don't have Alexei third. We have to do just two kings today, or two kings of microphone.
Thank you again. Well, I think the key message to probably both audiences, whether they're undergraduates or graduate students who are ready to go out and find jobs and start their real life, I would say that the future belongs to them, literally, and they should really follow their vision, not necessarily try to find a better paying job or any job, or follow some immediate needs, but maybe, if possible, try to develop their vision of the world and their place in this new world, and work on their career to really make a difference. Follow their vision, make a difference, because there is really nobody and nothing stops young people, graduates, including graduates from this university, to shape the future, to make the future the way they want it to make. There's no external force that stands on their way. So I think the key message is go out there and do what you think is right, and hopefully their professors taught them what is right, or at least where to find it.
Alexei the second.
Thank you again. And my view is the next, that today, say the truth, in our country there are lots of different documents which document strategies which have different options concerning sustainable development, climate, reduce of environment presence, reduce to help the climate change implement, but unfortunately no one of these options implement in reality. And maybe there is sense to move from paper document to reality implementation of the moments which present in this document, and start to implement our clean green economy, our sustainable development of our economy, and change our view, maybe change something in our heads, and starting to move from words to really final options. This is my view, maybe. Thank you.
Yeah, and now, like, most difficult part, it's me talking to young generation. So what I do, sometimes I bring my example from my life. Once I had the opportunity to spend time, quite a lot of time, with former Prime Minister of Malaysia and a couple of other countries. And what was interesting, a very interesting idea, what what I heard from them. They told me, look, it's not very easy to be Prime Minister. It's not just a name tag on your jacket. It's not like limousine which takes you to your work. It's about thinking like Prime Minister. Let you put yourself in my shoes. You have to walk like Prime Minister and think about like Prime Minister. Think about many things. Like think about water, making sure that people the country thinks in advance about clean water for citizens. You have to think about food for your citizens. You have to think about many things. And my usually advice to young generation, starting from today, at least for half an hour, put yourself in the shoes of Prime Minister, or President, or a Minister, whatever your dream takes you, and start thinking about, as a Prime Minister, what you can do, what should you do, and how you plan to do. And if you start thinking that way, you will find the ways how to communicate your ideas to your classmates, to your professors. And you know, we often play what we call elevator pitch. Or maybe you have a chance to talk to a prime minister, to president, or to someone on the top, and to provide, to share your concerns, to share your ideas, and to get ready. One day, maybe tomorrow, maybe next month, maybe next year, sooner or later, when you have a chance to make a decision about yourself, about your community, about your city, about your country, you make a proper decision. You make a wise decision, which leads to sustainable development, which leads to a better life for today and for future generations, and which actually makes you a leader, which not only talks about ideas, but who also is capable about thinking how to implement those ideas. That's what I do with my students. And here, actually, I'm just happy to tell you that we had exactly 39 minutes together. And thank you very much to Astana. Thank you very much to Geneva. Thank you very much to all of us in Almaty city. Thank you very much to our IT team. We have two IT teams in Almaty at Kazakhstan National University, and they're behind the walls, so you cannot see them, but we can see them. And people in Astana, IT team in Astana, those who will put this wonderful video online. Thank you very much for all of us. I hope our discussion was fruitful, and I hope it will be useful for all students who will watch it on G Global platform. And also you have opportunity to invite your classmates, your friends, your colleagues to watch this video and to contribute to discussions, to write comments. You're welcome. I will send you the link, and I hope we will continue our lively discussion on the what we call new media in the cyberspace. Thank you very much to everyone, and see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.